From 6 to 16, the most important decade in a girl's life. Growing girls should be supported and strengthened by the healthful, convenient, and graceful Ferris's Good Sense corset. Ladies, if you desire a transparent, clear, fresh complexion, free from blotch, blemish, roughness, coarseness, redness, freckles, or pimples, use Dr. Campbell's Arsenic Complexion Wafers. Radium and Beauty. Here is the first toilet preparation to embody actual radiation. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and today I'm going to be literally drawing the beauty standard from different areas and historical eras, and this time I'm focusing on the deadliest or most difficult to achieve beauty standards throughout history. So first off, I want to talk about tubercular beauty and the sickly beauty of the Victorian waifs. Now there was a period when consumption or tuberculosis was associated with the upper class and with sort of like sensitive, feminine, artistic women, and during this time the kind of best thing you could look like was a woman who was dying of tuberculosis. So that means extremely pale skin, very thin, and generally just looking like your moments from death, which obviously is really hard to achieve if you're actually healthy and taking care of yourself. So one of the things that people would do was they would eat arsenic, not with the express purpose of poisoning themselves, but this was supposed to help make their skin really clear and really pale. Now, as you guys know from my poisoning videos, arsenic is very deadly poison, and there is actually no safe amount for you to be taking. The only way these wafers were safe were if they were false advertising and there wasn't any arsenic at all. It would vary. There wasn't very good like consumer protection back then, so some of them might have basically just been communion wafers, whereas others actually did have arsenic, and people would get very sick. Now, another way that they would try to get this consumptive chic going is by tight lacing. Now, if you've watched a lot of like historical girlies on YouTube, there is a big push back against this idea that corsets were inherently really brutal and cruel to women, and that's true. They weren't all bad for women. However, corsetry sometimes was a thing that people would push to extremes. So one thing they would do is tight lacing, where they would try to just tighten it way past the point that it's safe or comfortable, and the corsetry of children. Now this was another way you could get that like deathly thin kind of look, and it would really dramatically deform the body, especially if you started young, and if you kept tight lacing, your whole rib cage would be unable to grow normally, and it would crush in your organs, make it really hard for you to digest your food properly, cause all kinds of tummy problems, as well as making it kind of impossible to take a full breath. So this is part of the reason why we associate Victorian women with fainting a lot. Another problem was things like cadmium and mercury in some of the cosmetics that were used. Mercury was suggested to be used on the eyelids to make eyelashes grow in more thickly, and putting mercury in or near your eyes is a very bad idea. Mercury poisoning can cause kidney problems, numbness, muscle weakness, coordination issues, decreased intelligence. It can kill you in extreme cases, and it's just definitely not worth it to put it on your skin. So in summary, to achieve the beauty standard of the Victorian era, what you had to do was crush your ribs, eat arsenic, put mercury directly on your eyes and your skin, and if you survived all of that, you might achieve the perfect consumptive chic of the day. The next era and place I want to talk about is the beauty standard from the late 18th and early 19th century in China. Now, as some of you have probably heard of before, there was a very extreme beauty practice in China where the foot would be bound. Now, I kind of knew what foot binding was, but I had never really researched it before this video, and it's actually a bit more extreme than I had even realized. So the beauty standard that you were trying to achieve as a woman, particularly in this time period, especially if you were someone who was wealthy, or you aspired to become wealthy through marriage, was the smallest feet that you could possibly make. And you might wonder, like, how do you make your feet smaller? This doesn't seem possible. I will try not to get into too graphic of detail because it is pretty brutal, but when a girl was quite young, between 4 and like 8, her parents would break her foot in half basically and fold it under itself. And that is how you would create what was called like the lotus foot. It was a folded over form of like a tiny little foot. And they would have to do all sorts of horrible things to the toes. And just like with corsetry, the goal was smaller, smaller, smaller with like there was no limit of like, oh, okay, that's too small. There's even historical writing where the different sizes of lotus feet are kind of broken into tiers. And the very best, the golden lotus, is 3 inches or smaller. And this really mattered. The families of sons who were going to be married often demanded a girl with really small feet. One thing I've learned through these beauty standard videos is that anytime you're trying to achieve an extreme with the body, things get painful very, very fast. There were lots of issues with infections, and of course, this made it incredibly hard to walk. For some people, they actually could not walk without shoes on or could barely walk at all. Another misconception that I had was that this wasn't something that like tons and tons of people did, but in fact, by the start of the 19th century, almost 100% of upper class Han women had their feet bound, so it was incredibly common. This would also help with another beauty standard, which was about being very, very pale, because once your feet are bound, it's really hard for you to go outside and like be on uneven ground or really doing anything laborious outside. So you end up usually doing handiwork inside. So that keeps you very pale. It keeps you not very active, so you're not developing a lot of muscle. And that helps with this beauty standard as well. Just really trapping them in their houses and making them completely dependent on their husband and their husband's family. Oftentimes the primary motivation for foot binding was to make sure that they could get a husband, because it was so desirable at this time that like you could not get married without it basically. Revolutionary and early feminist Kyu Jin was one woman who actually unbound her own feet and spoke out against the practice. But it went on long enough that there are still women alive today who have their feet bound. It's interesting that actually these two beauty standards we just talked about share a lot of things, like the restriction of the body to the point where it limits your movement with the corsets and the binding, as well as this obsession with paleness that can only really happen if you're stuck inside. There is definitely like some parallels here, which I didn't expect. In both these cases, it seems like the beauty standard was there as sort of a psychological cage to encourage women to be weak and stay inside. This next era is a bit more of just a super dangerous trend that was going around in skincare and beauty in the 1920s and a little before then, after the discovery of radioactivity and radium by Marie Curie. There was this huge push to put radiation and radium in your beauty products. People didn't really understand that it was dangerous yet, and it was cool because it glowed and it felt very like modern and sci-fi for everybody. So from perms to skincare, a lot of different companies were claiming to put actual radioactive material into the product, which, as we know now, is not a good idea. Now, luckily, in a lot of cases, people were being kind of scammed. Like, there was very little, if any, actual radioactive substance inside of these products. It was mostly just like a gimmick. It was like the new hot technology at the time, so they were just putting the name on everything. But there were definitely some products that really did have radium in them. One such product was Radithor, which was said to be an energy drink, radioactive water that you could ingest, and it would cure basically everything. It was like a snake oil. They said it would fix all kinds of different diseases, and even if you were in sexual decline as an older man. A man, an athlete and socialite named Eben Byers, loved drinking Radithor and said it was really helpful. And there was a really brutal Wall Street Journal headline that ran after he died from doing this, which read, "The radium water worked fine until his jaw came off." So pretty horrifying, honestly. Definitely not something you should be drinking. There is also the very sad case of the Radium girls, the women who painted basically glow-in-the-dark radioactive paint onto watches. The company they worked for insisted that it was safe, and they would literally put the brushes in their mouth to sharpen the point of the brush and get this super fine painting done. And they got really sick, of course. They would have radium jaw, which would cause necrosis of their bones and literally like make their jaw crumble apart. The company tried to say that actually it was caused by syphilis. They were just trying to like smear these girls and say that they were just of ill repute, and there was a whole documentary about this case. Really reminds me of my video about evil corporations. They really have not changed, have they? But yeah, this was a very strange time in beauty, and it reminds me of all the times that some big technology has come out and they've started just like plastering it on everything without really thinking if it even makes sense. Last up, I want to talk about now, because I feel like it's so easy in these types of videos to just be like, wow, people in the past were so insane for putting toxic stuff on their skin and deforming their bodies just for the sake of beauty. But I do think that even now we have a lot of the same tendencies, and we can really end up hurting ourselves or diminishing our happiness by trying to chase like beauty trends just the same way that everybody has in the past. So I did some research into the deadliest and most dangerous common plastic surgeries, as well as just talking about some things that are still true, such as the mercury issue. So this is one of the first things I wanted to mention. We still put mercury on our skin. There are tons of places in the world where skin whitening is still something that people want to do for part of their like beauty and aesthetics journey. And unfortunately, many of these creams from various different places still have mercury in them. I think mercury is effective in lightening your skin, but as we've described, the side effects are brutal, and it can take some time when you're applying it to your face like this for you to start to notice, but by that point you're already doing a significant amount of damage. Here is a list of like contraband mercury skin care lotions and potions and stuff, and I think it's kind of disturbing to see them in modern packaging, because you think to yourself, like, you know, you try out new skincare all the time, and it's really easy, I think, to probably put something unsafe on your skin. I also wanted to talk about the much joked about Brazilian butt lift, or BBL. I feel like it's become such a part of common parlance, and a lot of people do get this surgery. Like I see in LA relatively regularly, but this is one of the riskiest cosmetic procedures that you can do because of the blood vessels that are in that region of your body, as well as the risk of fat embolism, which is where some of the fat that they're moving can get into your bloodstream and block your heart or your lungs. That can be completely fatal. It's also such a major surgery that you have to be under anesthesia for a really long time. There's just a tremendous amount of ways that things can go wrong, or you could be killed or permanently disabled trying to do this surgery. Another really deadly surgery that's less common but that we have kind of invented in the modern age is eye color change surgery. This is actually the cosmetic surgery that has the most risk of complications, and as you can imagine, trying to change permanently your eye color, whether it's with lasers or by slipping in essentially a permanent color contact into your eyeball, the risk of infection and blindness is just very high. I fell down a relatively morbid rabbit hole with this one, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you leave this video feeling a little less beholden to the beauty standards of the day. I think you're all beautiful the way that you are. Thank you so much for watching till the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my patrons and members, including Pale Star, Darkholder, Frog Scourge, Zucchini, Zio Reyes, The Main PC, Esther Kaufman, Sopapia, Roger Baker, Pretty Little Head Poppy Seed, Hey Chol, Neko Omori, Trexa Panda, Lucians, Lonely Zealot, Novel Goblin, The Mousy Mouse, Clown of Clubs, Prince Piplup III, I'm a Potato, Honey Kitten, Loro, Data, Lily McFarlane, Skitten, Gold Pikachu. The Names Are Gone, Crodotus, Rectangle, Blanket of Misery, Moves Like Platinum, Sunday Good Enough, Ace Water, Jordan, Clown of Clubs, Jeffu, Sunshine, River the Goblin, Raz Tarosh, Casey, Graveyard Moss, Grexius, Emma Lightning, The Midwestern Menace, CB, Lucy Yamajiki, Ravenscrow, Zosalot, Jabber Dabber Doo, Light Julie, Kadaria, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, JJ Jade, and of course, blah 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 blah.